Thanks for tuning in to the Palm Beach Podcast, a weekly show highlighting people making a positive impact in our community. With your hosts, sports chiropractor and athletic trainer, Dr. James Spencer, photographer and art director, Mike Jones. Our show is brought to you by Pump House Coffee Roasters, Hopportunities in Delray Beach, and the Lotus Travel Company for retreats and tours in Palm Beach County. Hello, and welcome to the Palm Beach Podcast. My name is Mike Jones. I'm hanging out at Media Zone with a couple cool people. Dr. James Spencer, how you doing today, buddy?
Pleasure, now that I'm drinking this beautiful seltzer water.
We all have a sparkling water of some sort. Mine is the Funky Buddha variety.
Yes, but always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have a special guest in the studio today, Mike.
We have a special guest in the studio for every episode, don't we?
Well, fortunately, yes, but the Moss Boss, the real deal, she is in the house today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. This is so fun.
Lindsay, go ahead and introduce yourself, would you?
Sure. My name is Lindsay Scherr Burgess. I am the Moss Boss of Green Wallscapes. We create preserved moss walls, letters, logos, and art for companies and homes all over the U.S. and Canada. In the last year, we have done over 250 projects. And, from very small little plant paintings like the one behind me up to enormous walls for huge companies. So it's been
This is small?
while. This is very small.
Okay.
This is very small.
I liked the love one that you guys have.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it pops.
Yeah, we do a lot. It's been really interesting. We have shifted we were doing about 90% commercial before COVID hit. And then now we're doing, I would say, about 90% residential. And so the work is more creative, smaller, more challenging.
Custom?
Lots of pivoting.
Lots of pivoting, lots of, can we tweak this, that kind of thing, which you don't get in commercial as much. But we're really optimistic for 2021 and what's the possibilities, as we like to say, are endless.
I like that. I just love how it flows.
I didn't do any pun research before this, and I'm feeling very underprepared. Like, where's the green
Don't
wall,
worry.
mossy tree puns? Hey, technician out there, Evo, can you pun us up?
He'll get on it.
Put some on the screen for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, so tell the listeners a little bit how you got started and relevancy to Palm Beach County.
Yeah. So I started the business, I think like the way that most people start businesses, which is I was on Pinterest and I liked something and I was like, oh, I can make that. And so literally my husband and I went to a craft store one Saturday night because we're super cool. We have a lot going on. And we, and I glued some moss to a frame and somebody saw it and said, hey, can you make one for us? And then somebody else saw it and said, and then I started a little store, like a little online store, because my background is in sales and marketing. I don't want to be like, oh, it just came out of nowhere. Like, yes, I have a background in sales and marketing. And I knew sort of basic fundamentals, but I really wasn't focused on it. And then about 3 years ago, I was working on a project. The project was ending. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I've got to find something else. And I had a feeling that something was coming. And, as soon as I started really putting my attention on this, I think my timing was really good. The fact that I have a background in sales and marketing was really helpful. And now I have 4 full-time employees, and we are hiring 2 more probably in the next couple weeks once our new studio is ready. And it has been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like we've worked with unbelievable brands like Starbucks and Stella Artois and like major sports brands and all sorts of cool things. And then tons of small businesses. So lots of yoga studios, med spas, dental offices, any of that kind of stuff all over the country. So
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys growing so quickly too.
It's challenged every part of my being growing this fast, to be very honest with you. It's really challenging. The overhead is enormous for this because the material is incredibly expensive. And, I pay my employees really well and try to keep, because they're actual artists. So I feel like, they're coming, they're putting their attention and their love and their energy into this stuff. I want them to feel compensated properly. And I've definitely worked in lots of places where I haven't been compensated properly. So I do know that. And we're growing, and it's amazing to be part of such a fast growing startup for something so niche like this. And, I would I'd like to say that we're like probably in the top 5 in the US for this specific niche application. It's not that hard to be the best in like a very niche application.
Yeah, but still, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yeah. And it's a fun combination between kind of art, marketing, commerce, and branding. Like, I've done a lot of sales marketing and branding. I've created brands for other people, and I've helped grow businesses that were not my own before this. So I learned a lot along the way in terms of internet marketing and all that kind of stuff. But when COVID hit, we were set up really well on the online thing. So while we did have a dip, in March, April, May of last year, like it was the second half of the year was bonkers, crazy, because all the construction stopped and then all restarted all at the same time, and nobody could get any materials. It was really fun and super relaxing. So
Sure, yeah, you're like,
Clearly.
I only have like 800 gray hairs, but I'm fine. It's great.
you're like, yeah, we're supposed to have like this specific thing like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's like not here, and it's twice as expensive than it used to be.
Right.
Type of thing, yeah.
Or, I ship something from FedEx and they just lost it. Like, sorry, and so, or destroyed it. That's another one that's super fun to fight with them about. And they never pay you enough, and it's just a whole thing. So you have to build in, like, in my case, $10,000 to $15,000 a year of lost product from shippers and things like that, because they're also completely overwhelmed with the demand, for e-com that just wasn't there a year ago.
And I think that like people can relate to that, whether, I don't know how many other people are in the niche of building moss walls, but like as a small business owner in Palm Beach County, we all have these like sunken or hidden costs.
Oh, totally.
Like it's just one of those things where, because we live in this like Instagram facade, you're like, oh, it's all warm and fuzzy, but there is a lot of trials, tribulations, growing pains. And so thank you for being so candid.
I will tell you the truth. I mean, you need a really thick skin to be an entrepreneur, and you need to be a really thick skin because it's not only what you come up against in your own like emotional, mental, physical brain, but also like your employees and the challenges that they have. And, I work with all very talented, very sensitive artists. So there's not, there's ways of navigating that aren't always, it's not like a normal thing where you just like come in and make moss. It's like, no, we want you to put the energy and attention and love into this. And the clients feel that. And that's why we have such an amazing book of business.
That's incredible. And how do you recruit your artists?
So, they've come through different ways. Right now we use mostly Indeed and, a little bit LinkedIn, Craigslist, like whatever. We'll try anything. And our company does one of two things. People come and they stay and they're with me for a long time, or they're in and they're out, like in a very short period of time. And we know pretty quickly if they're going to fit into the culture in terms of like, do they have a growth mindset? Do they take responsibility? Like I put so much on my girls in terms of like, you're responsible for this. You made this mistake. You got to fix it. And I don't care if you stay here all night fixing it. You own this. And it's not top down at all. And they have really risen to the occasion. But there's plenty of people that we've had come through our doors that have not risen to that occasion, and they're out quickly. And so it's not my favorite part of the business, like having to let people go or not thinking, oh my God, they're going to be perfect. And then they're just not because of like stuff that's also going on in their own lives. It's been a really interesting learning experience, and you can never perfect it. It's just, people change, and where their life, where they are in their life now is going to be very different than when they're in their life 5 years from now or 3 years from now, or what they need changes and that kind of thing. So we're always like doing these different evaluations with them and check-ins and all that kind of stuff, because it's really important to me that my girls are happy, because their happiness gets translated into the work and the energy. And, as soon as they're not happy or as soon as they get flustered, mistakes get made. And sometimes they're beautiful mistakes, and that's really cool. But other times it's like
blessings in disguise.
Yeah, blessings in disguise. I have a piece. This is a very funny story. So we have a certain flow that we sold to a client, and what she thought she was getting versus what we made were two different things. Because we have, even within our flows, like very structured ones and very loose ones. Anyway, I'm getting a beautiful structured flow for my house, even though the lady wanted like a very loose, organic, whatever. And it was just hard because, again, when you're dealing with commercial most of the time, they don't care. They're like, put moss on the wall. When you're dealing with residential, they're like, can you move this moss from here up 2 inches to here. And I'm like, yes, of course I can.
It's not at eye level.
Right, exactly.
So true.
Like, whatever.
So
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then, like the numbers are much lower in those projects. Also, like, a project that's this size is, $600-$700, whatever, $1,000, whatever. And, I'm excited about a project that's $10,000 that's going to cover the whole wall. And those $10,000 clients are typically much easier to deal with than these little ones. And that's been such an interesting thing to learn, you know?
I was going to say, isn't that interesting? You
Uh-huh.
wouldn't expect that. And for Mike and I, like what we've learned too with brand design and things like that is getting the client to really articulate what they want.
So hard.
It's almost like you have to tease it out of them. Like,
Uh-huh.
all right, what do you really want for this situation? Right.
Right.
Send me a screenshot.
Yes.
Draw it yourself. Like, if you're going to be
Yeah.
micromanaging it, because some people will come and say, you're the expert,
Right.
do it. And I will trust your judgment. And other people will be like, no, I think that this should curve a little more like this.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to be able to navigate every different type of client.
Right. And, it's also training my team on not taking that personally because, when you're making these things, they are pieces of art and botanical art. So it's, long ago, I was like, you have to give up any attachment to the outcome of this.
Yeah, like I remember portfolio review in art school. They're like,
Yeah.
it's thick skin building class. It's not portfolio review building class.
Right. And some of the girls on my team actually have like PTSD from their portfolio reviews just because they were so aggressive. We are not aggressive in that way. I'm like, guys, it doesn't matter. If this client wants the moss upside down on the ceiling, we will put it there and we will be so happy about it. If they want purple and green and yellow and orange and like whatever and horrible colors that don't work, yes, that sounds great. Like, we say yes, and then we take the projects that
And then we figure it out.
And then we figure it out. We cry sometimes. So it's a really amazing learning experience. And, you start fresh every single client.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just, I feel very grateful. I mean, I cannot believe that we get to do this. I cannot believe who we get to work with. I mean, just amazing clients and, huge development companies. And we had one reach out today. He's like, you did such a fabulous job on this other one. And like your attention to detail was amazing. And it was so easy to deal with you and all that stuff. And those are the things that like set you apart, I mean, we bend over so far backwards. Sometimes we like screw ourselves in a lot of ways, I think, but I don't care. Because I would rather, first of all, the Google is our enemy. Like it's very scary. I mean, one person could just like destroy your reputation regardless. You could have all 5-star reviews and then some crazy train comes and says that you did a good job. So we are wackos about, how we follow up with people and how we communicate with them and all that kind of stuff, almost to overkill. But
you're on the long-term play.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's a very different, because I've talked to like internet marketing people and they're like, let's blow this up. Like you can be number one for moss walls or whatever. And 17,000 people a month look up moss walls. Now, whether or not 17,000 people want to buy a moss wall is another story. But what I've seen is that like, okay, so we're going to be number one. Well, I can't deliver on all of that right now. Like we don't have the systems in place. We don't have the processes in place. We don't have the people in place. I am completely sold out right now until about the middle of April. Like cannot take any more clients. And that's an amazing problem to have. And that's why we're getting a few more people because we just can't deliver fast enough. But it takes a long time to get them ramped up to do it the way we want to do it. Like we're crazy. We'll like be like, okay, all the hairs have to go down.
That's awesome though.
Yeah.
Again, attention to detail, right?
Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. And when you don't do that and when you don't pay attention to those details, it's blaringly obvious. It's like that. And this goes in someone's house for years and years and years. Like we don't want them to look at it and be like, oh, well, it's just there's something off. You know what I mean? So
and again, it's the quality over quantity model that we like to see here because people are willing to pay a little more for something that's a little extra nice.
Right. Right.
But one thing I will say that I admire of the things that you've been talking about is like you're not talking about like a person as their role, but you're talking about the person as a person. And I remember the first time I was put in a managerial role, day one of like learning about managing is you're not managing the artist, you're managing the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's cool to see how you speak about your team and the things that matter to you, because I think that's something that can be inspirational for others.
Well, I love those girls. They are my family. I mean, they are, my ride or dies. And so, it's a little bit of a dysfunctional relationship sometimes, but they're
laughing right now as you're laughing. They're like, oh my
God. They show up and they really, they are as interested in pushing the envelope in terms of this material and in terms of like what we can do. And the stuff that's coming out of the studio now is mind blowing. It's so beautiful. It's so creative. It's such a different way of using the material. And it's really fun because, there's not a lot of art jobs in Palm Beach County. There's a long time when people come and work with us where they have to learn the fundamentals of sort of like, it's kind of like learning the fundamentals of painting or the fundamentals of graphic design. Before you become a good graphic designer, you got to like draw a lot of lines. In our case, you got to glue a lot of moss, that kind of thing. And then now,
study some art history too.
Right, exactly.
Like, may not be the most fun.
Right.
But if you learn what's worked and what hasn't.
Yeah.
Especially in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, it's been great. I mean, I don't think that the community even really knows that much that we're here, to be very honest with you. And I don't care if they do or not, because we have plenty of work and we're fine. We'd love to do more projects locally, but really most of our work goes to other parts of the country. I mean, we do tons of work in Texas, like tons.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Tons of work. They have big houses and lots of empty walls and big buildings and lots of empty walls there too. We did a project that was like enormous for us, and I sent it to Dallas and there was an issue with the install. So I had to fly to the install and fix it. That's again, one of those like, oops, we gotta go save the day kind of situations. And we got to, and I remember thinking like, God, these walls are enormous. And I got to Texas and it looked like little postcards in their enormous atrium. Like these walls were like 8 feet tall and 7 feet wide. And there were 4 of them and they looked like little tiny things. You know what I mean? That was like crazy. So everything's bigger in Texas. And then a lot of work in California also.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
What's your favorite project that you've done?
Oh my God. Every time we finish a project, I'm like, I love this one the most. Like, this is my favorite project. I can probably name the ones that I don't like.
Yeah, of course. Right.
No, I won't name names because, they could hear this, but, I don't know. I mean, I'd say that they fall in different categories. We did a really cool project for Parkline, Miami. So the Bright Lines apartment building in Miami, we did a really gorgeous one there. We also did the Kips Bay Decorator Show House, which was like this awesome staircase project when it was very early in my business. And I didn't, one of my best girlfriends is a PR person, was like, you should do this. You should send emails. And I was like, and at first they wanted me to do 200 square feet. Like they wanted me to do the entire hallway. And I was like, I can't do that. Like it's too much and you're not paying me. And I'm a little tiny company. What are you talking about? Of one employee that's full-time and one part-time contractor? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, but we can do the part underneath the staircase. And she's like, that's actually a better idea and a better use of the material. And that's how we got into Arc Digest and some of those.
The expert. Just let the expert do their job, right?
Yeah. And it turned out much better. It would have looked horrible also if it had been like an entire moss. Like, and that's the thing too, is that, even today I was having a conversation, a client came in, they're building a big house. They want to come see the work. And the lady was like, well, what about sun? What about this? Like I have this really bright room. I'm like, you can't put it in there because first of all, there's some people who just want to sell. They want to like churn and burn as quickly as possible. I don't want to churn and burn because as soon as put it in that bright room, it's going to burn and look terrible. And then I'm going to have to fix it or going to have to come up with a solution for it. So I have a very different way I approach business, I think, than a lot of people. I mean, it's definitely not as profitable as it could be. It's definitely not as fast as it could be. It's definitely not as like big as it could be, probably. But I don't care because I would rather it be like excellent and awesome and so special and beautiful. I mean, that's important to me. And that's my personality type. Like I'm like I feel things and all that kind of stuff. And I like feeling things. And I like the pride of like, we make beautiful things for nice humans. And we say that all the time. And
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. 95% of our clients are like the most wonderful people on earth. And then you got like 5% that you're like, okay, I should have probably not said yes to this project.
And down the road, you'll say no.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you learn. I can definitely resonate, with my business as well as, you have people that you almost interview as they come in, and you're this just isn't a good fit.
Right.
And it's almost like breaking up with a high school girlfriend where they just can't believe it and they keep chasing you down the road. And you're like, no, it's not you, it's me, right? And that's really, I've learned that over the years, just for my sense of business is sometimes it's an emotional attachment for me that it's just going to be an energy vampire.
Totally. Yeah. And whether that's employees or clients, you have to get away from those people because they suck up. I always think about my life as like a pie, and it's like, in my life, I want just the pie to be like super delicious. And if there's like one section that's rotting or not going well, all the attention and all the energy goes to that and it sucks all the energy. And it's like, and I'm also on the flip side of that, like I'm very non-confrontational. So I will just be like, oh, well, it'll be fine, like whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I'm just really messing up myself and my own business and all that kind of stuff. And toxic employees can create so many problems. Toxic clients can create so many problems. It's like, you just have to do everything in your power to learn how to speak to clients and fix and find that stuff out, or speak to employees and people that could work with you and figure that out as fast as you possibly can. And
yeah, sometimes you just have to tell people to just leave.
Right.
Just make like a tree and leave.
Right. Yeah. Our process is a little bit more long. We draw it out. I'm like, leave. Please leave. Please leave. No, you have to leave now. Like, seriously, you have to get out of here. Yeah.
So let's give a shout out to the husband.
Yeah.
Apparently entrepreneurial spirit as well.
Yeah. So between my husband and I, we have 3 businesses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we don't like to do anything but work all the time. And so in 2017, I went to like 17 countries and like was traveling all over the world and joking that, my husband was at home and like somebody's got to work. And now I'm like, karma is such a...
That's awesome.
I am working my brains out. But I love it. I mean, it's okay. I get to sell moss walls for a living. It's so fun. It's like the craziest business ever. But yeah. So my husband, he owns 2 companies. He owns a landscape architecture company called Paradella Burgess Design Studios.
Wow.
Yeah. And he also owns a company called the Spinnaker Group that does lead consulting. So he bought that company. It was an existing business. He bought that company, I think, 3 years ago also. So we've had a lot of transition. Like we bought our house, we bought the other company, like we started Green Wallscapes, like way too many things all at once. And yeah, this year he was like, okay, we're moving our studio and then that's it. We're not doing anything else. Like
I need to breathe.
Well, I need to breathe. I need a minute.
Yeah.
I need a minute,
Sounds like he really likes to branch out.
Yeah.
There's the
there
pun.
you go.
I know. I've had a couple that I was like, I got to get these in.
You're like, well, let's talk about this so we can like.
Yeah.
So no, it's been a wild experience. I would love, I'm always like, I want to like run away and be a monk in India or something, like, and just meditate and do nothing. There's part of me that wants that. And then there's part of me that like loves the thrill of business and loves the thrill of the experience of the whole thing. And it's a really hard push and pull, especially when things get really hard. And, there's stuff gets lost in the mail. Something happens, the girls are upset about something. The client's mean to them, like whatever. And the moss doesn't show up. That happens a lot. We're finding out things like there's also seasonality because moss has gone from sort of like a cute cottage industry into like something that people are seriously putting in as a serious building thing. Like a building, the word is not coming to me, just like a finish, a building finish. It's like all the suppliers who were just kind of like, bumping along, doing a little moss here and there, selling to florists and that kind of thing. Now they're like all slammed. And they're having challenges with keeping up with the demand as well. And so like those timelines have been kind of, because no one wakes up in the morning and thinks, oh, I want to be a moss preservation person, except for my moss people who are like hardcore crazy moss people. So
well, it's like I think like a material now, industrial people that would be like going through a catalog. Like I like this one.
Right.
Where for like an office building or something, this is a very nice way to liven it up.
Right. Right. And soften.
Sometimes when you're in like rooms with drop ceilings and white walls, a little bit of plant, shrub, greenery can really liven the place up.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. What we find too. I mean, it's just, people will spend astronomical amounts of money on like the most beautiful, modern, cold, like really beautiful office furniture. And it all costs like, one chair is $3,000 and all that kind of stuff. And you get to the end, it's gorgeous, but it's the most cold feeling, sad office ever. And we just did an install for a company. And I was like, thank God we did the moss in here because it was so sad. And I was like, and our moss piece was like the little thing that they like added on at the end and were beating me up on the price. And I'm like, that chair costs more than my,
than the moss wall,
than the entire moss wall. Exactly. So, so that's a funny thing, but I can't tell you how many times people are like, I need to warm up the space. I have like, this is too cold. You have the whole trend right now of people sitting in their houses for the first time, probably in 20 years thinking, okay, I'm not spending this money on travel. I'm not spending this money going out to eat. I'm not doing anything right now. So let me
call up the Moss
boss. And I had a woman call me the other week and she's like, I have to have your work. And I was like, okay.
What an honor.
I was like,
Thanks for letting me know.
I will give my work to you then. That sounds great. Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. Do you guys brand it in any particular fashion so it's yours?
Yes. So we have different collections. So this is our Botanica collection. So this is all preserved, like all preserved foliage and all preserved moss. We have our Chroma collection, which is all reindeer mosses and like bright colors of moss. We have our Amazonia collection, which is actually our like most popular application of moss. It's moss, succulents, ferns, amaranthus, and we're probably the only people in the US that do it at any sort of scale. And we do these very large walls. And how it came about was a client came in probably 2.5 years ago and was like, Lindsay, I don't want a moss wall. And I was like, well, that's what we do here. And she's like, she's like, I want a succulent wall. And I was like, yes. Okay. And I said, well, we don't do that. And she goes, well, you do now. So you've got to figure it out.
Spray bottle included.
Yeah, exactly. So the great thing is, we work with, all faux, like super high-end faux succulents that are gorgeous that people cannot tell that they're not living. They're not the crappy ones that you get on Amazon. They're like super expensive, super fancy ones.
Like the ones we have out there.
Yes, like the ones you have out there.
I'm sure we got judged on the way in. I'm like, oh gosh, our succulent collection needs an upgrade, Spence.
It's okay.
I love it.
I can get you guys some succulents.
Hey,
I've got a few thousand in my office right now.
Perfect.
Let's make a deal.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that came, and then we've just got like different things, and then we do a lot of branded. We're like the number one people in the country for moss logos. Like if you look up moss logos, which is, I know, again, very niche, but for people who need a moss logo or who are like, I've seen that living wall logo thing, like whatever, we're like the top people in the country for that specific application.
That's incredible.
So, again, I think, our timing was really good. And, it does help to have a very talented team that can deliver. And, I'm not just saying it, like the work speaks for itself, and there you can see pictures of it and that kind of thing. And we've just been so lucky. I mean, we've just been insanely lucky with our timing. And this is the first business that I've ever had, because this is probably like my fourth or fifth business, like try at business, that has like really taken off. I mean, most things that I've tried either were like sort of, I thought they were a good idea, but I wasn't like super passionate about them. Like how I met my husband was I was trying to sell energy management systems and I cold called him. I mean, that's really sexy.
Meant to be.
Yeah. Hey, you never know. Exactly. And he's like, well, I don't have any buildings, but do you want to come to a Halloween party? And that was that, that
Perfect.
kind of, one of those stories. And then, this is sort of the perfect combination. I think it's like, it's got the creativity, it's got the variety, it's got the sort of beauty part of it that's very important to me. And then it's also got the, like, there's also like, we're making money, which is cool, so.
So how can we find you online?
So there's so many ways. Greenwallscapes.com is our website. You can also find us on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, I mean, all the things. And
all the social medias.
All the social medias, exactly. And it's been an amazing journey. And honestly, I'm so grateful that I get to work in Palm Beach County specifically because it is the best, in my opinion, the best sort of work life. If you're going to have work-life balance as an entrepreneur, which doesn't really exist, but I can still look out my window and see boats and see water, and I can walk from my office to my boat dock and get on the boat in the afternoon, like after I've been working for a couple of hours. Like there's nowhere else in the planet that you can do that, especially in February.
Correct.
So that's what we're doing this weekend. And so, there's there's just the traffic's really manageable. The people are really honest is what I've also found too. Like you don't have sort of like the sketchy vibe that you do in some of these bigger cities. And you also have like people who have lived in other places who are really smart, who just came here because they needed like a great place to live and they're doing it, and it's I love living here. If I could shout out to Palm Beach County more than anything else. And we lived in Miami for 5 years also, which was an invaluable experience in the sense of like, we learned how to hustle hard in Miami. Miami is the most hustly place ever. It's so flashy and hustly and all the things.
It's Rick Ross, right?
Yeah, exactly. But, at some point, like you look around and you're like, okay, I want to buy a house at some point. I don't have $2 million for a house. I want to like have a normal life and do that kind of stuff. And so you can, even though the cost of living is going up a lot, it's nothing like
down south,
and then it's just more manageable. Then I'm a lot more competitive also from a business standpoint. I mean, we bid a project against a company in New York. We were literally, I think like 50% cheaper than they were. Like, so it's so much more expensive to do what they're doing, which is exactly the same thing that we're doing with the exact same materials, because I know where they get their stuff from, because it's like there's not that many suppliers. And so, yeah.
Sounds like your fees are going up.
I am. Well, I know. I was like, well, and we're not charging enough, right? And then the developer still beat me on the price, but whatever, it's fine. And so, with some of those projects, you just take them because you're like, this opens
Exposure.
the door to, so many other things. So
it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
So cool to see this piece in person. It actually is popping off
the wall
of the canvas. So it's a pleasure. I'm so glad that you brought a piece in because it really helps tell the story.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to meet you both, and it's awesome to meet fellow entrepreneurs and come to this awesome space and everything like that too. So
thank
thanks.
you so much. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.
Salute.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Palm Beach Podcast. Our show is brought to you by Pump House Coffee Roasters, Hopportunities in Delray Beach, and the Lotus Travel Company for retreats and tours in Palm Beach County.